Welcome to the Practical Farm Certifications Training. This program is brought to you by Louisiana SARE, Sustainable Ag Research and Education, and LSU Ag Center. Today we're going to be discussing the marketing perspective on different certifications. And with us we have Terreca Bates-Wells of Capital City Produce, Allison Tohmé of CLEDA, Central Louisiana Economic Development Alliance, and Angelina Harrison with Market Umbrella in New Orleans and the Crescent City Farmers Market. We also have Dr. Pam Hodson with the LSU Ag Center and Louisiana Sea Grant to help us ask a few questions and learn more about how certifications can affect the markets available to you. So with that, we're going to get started with our presentation. In our marketing perspective, we're going to go over wholesale distributors, farmers markets, grocery stores, and schools. First off, we'll have our wholesale distributor. Terreca, if you would introduce yourself, please.
Sure, absolutely. I am Terreca Bates-Wells. I am the Director of Special Projects here at Capital City Produce. And currently, I oversee our local farm initiative plan. And what that actually means is we are a large supporter of local farms in a 3-state region, which is also the region of service that we deliver to within Capital City. And so we are always looking to support local farmers in the state of Louisiana, Mississippi, and currently Alabama, and the Gulf Coast regions of both of those states. And we have always supported local. We have always partnered with larger farms in those areas over the years, but we have made a commitment about 4 years ago where we implemented the local farm initiative plan. And our goal is to eventually try to spend up to 5% of our spend with local growers in this area. And it is a demand from our consumer base. It is a demand for the school systems, a demand for retail, and it's just also good to support the community that supports you. So that's an overall view of what my role covers at Capital City.
Thanks, Terreca. And with that, we'll move on to our first question. So what certifications do you require of your growers?
So I would just like to say this first and foremost. Capital City is also a food safety certified facility. We currently have at our facility the SQF food safety certification for warehouse and distribution and for quality foods. So with that being said, we are required based on our food safety certification to ensure that every partner that we have in our distribution network, they are also food safety certified. So what we do in that process, we ask that every farm initially has the basic GAP certification for their farm, but we actually require the harmonized GAP. And of course, it's just more stringent because of the stringent food safety requirements that we hold ourselves to at that next level standard. But we do understand that the food safety certification process, it can be somewhat difficult or a new transition. So what we do at Capital City, if it is your first time pursuing the food safety certification, we will work with you up to that first year and accept the basic GAP requirements. But we are also asking within the second year that the farmer start the process to become, to actually get the harmonized GAP certification, because it's more in line with additional partnerships that we have through a program that we call Greener Fields Together. And it is a national supply chain program where they try to support local, but it is a national organization. So basically they put those small farmers and try to place them in a way to where they have the same food safety standards as some of the larger farms, which gives national customers and local customers that next level of security, that even though they're supporting local, they can feel just as secure and comfortable that the food safety measures that they have in place on a local level should meet the same standards if they were to buy from some of the larger growers across the country.
That's fantastic that your company works with you to help get you started, and a national, locally supporting grouped together.
Absolutely.
I'm definitely going to look into that.
Absolutely. And one thing I did want to share, I omitted to say earlier, we also provide support, financial support for the farmer. If they are pursuing the certification, we will pay for the audit the first year, and we will reimburse up to $500 annually towards their next audit, as long as we can prove that they have sold product to us within that previous year. We also work with the LSU Ag Center and also Southern University. They are a great asset when we have farmers that need additional hands-on assistance for the food safety plan. We have a great partnership with them. So if we have folks that just need a little assistance on getting the paperwork processed or completed, and to conduct mock audits, we have relationships there as well to make sure we do everything we can to bring the farmer on board and they have a successful onboarding process, and we can continue the relationship long term.
That's great. So you would definitely recommend working with your LSU and SU extension to help get that food safety plan going.
Absolutely. And we've had great success over the past few years with both of those relationships. With the hands-on assistance, we've heard positive feedback from our farmers, and we've actually recently, this year, we've actually brought on a local strawberry grower utilizing those resources from the LSU Ag Extension Center.
That's great. So you require this harmonized gap, but you understand that not everybody will have it when they get started, and you'll help them work through it, even paying for the audit the first year and $500 for the audit in the next few years after people start selling to you.
That's correct.
Okay. And are there any other certifications that you prefer the growers to have, but it's not absolutely a requirement?
That's it, though. That's the only one. As long as we have the basic gap to start, and eventually within the following the first year, if we can get them to the harmonized gap standard, that's all we have. That's all we require for them from a food safety perspective.
Okay, so do you think that you might be more likely to buy produce from a grower that had other certifications, say that they were, USDA certified organic or certified naturally grown or Louisiana grown? Would you be more likely to buy from them, or is that not very particular in your requirements?
It's not necessarily a requirement in my department. We basically have one requirement, that is we support local farmers. Everything else after that is all demand based on the customer's request. So if we don't have a request for a customer to say certified Louisiana, and for them, again, their assumption is that if once we say that it's local, the assumption, they understand that it's coming from Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama when you buy from capital city and not directly from the farmer. So we really tout local as local but regional.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we don't have any other specific certifications outside of that.
I think that leads me kind of into the next question. So you were saying that if your customer was demanding that they had Louisiana source produce, or specifically that it was certified naturally grown or Louisiana grown, then that's something that you would be looking for more from your growers.
That's
so do
correct.
You see an effect from certain branding with your consumers?
The only thing that our consumers ask, if the product is local, that we need to make sure we market it as such. So we try to ask the farmers to make sure they have on their labels their name and location clearly notated on their products, because that is just a very quick way for the consumer when they receive the product, that what they ask for, that's what they actually receive once during the delivery process. So that's just a key, very simple request, but it's very important to the end user that the marketing material clearly labels that it is a locally grown item.
Okay, that's really interesting. So it doesn't have to be any type of showy sticker or anything on the produce, but it does need to be marked in some way to show where it is coming from and the name of the grower to make it clear.
Correct. Absolutely.
So how important are these certifications in your selection of product or working with a grower?
It is the number one priority. If to partner with Capital City, you must be food safety certified. We try to put these resources in place to help the farmer come on board as fast as possible, but we are currently unable to purchase from anyone that is not food safety certified.
Okay, so number one has to be GAP, but I really do appreciate that that is not a requirement for as soon as they meet you. You are perfectly willing to talk to people who are not GAP certified yet, who are willing to become GAP certified.
Correct. That's typically at least 50% of the farmers that I talk to, they are not GAP certified. And it's understandable if you have farmers that have the ability to sell their produce through farmers markets, or they can sell it themselves through their farm or through their partnerships that they have, and they haven't been required in the past to have those food safety certifications. I don't think anyone is just going to, by choice, just take on more work, and you're not required to do so. It's just once you determine that you want to sell wholesale and commercially, those are just some of the requirements that come along with it. And again, we have to just think about, in this day and age where foodborne illnesses are prevalent right now, the consumer, that as much as they want to support local, they still want to ensure that they are providing their customers with quality produce.
Great. Thank you so much for telling us more about Capital City and your certification requirements and how you work with local growers. Dr. Hodson, do you have any questions that you would like to ask Terreca?
Sure. I know that you do have many conversations with farmers prior to their going through the GAP program. What are some of the questions that these farmers have in regard to GAP? How involved is it? Do they ask about cost? I mean, I know that many of them have heard of GAP and certainly are interested in it, particularly if they can work with you. But what kind of questions do they ask you about the GAP certification?
Thank you, Dr. Hassan. I think that's a great question, a very timely question. The main focus for the farmer, believe it or not, even though we offer the financial assistance, we're rarely asked to pay for it or to provide that service. What they actually ask for is assistance with the paperwork, and their other concern is, how do they manage the food safety plan on a day-to-day basis? So it seems that their biggest concern is making sure that they understand what's being asked of them as they prepare for the audit, and they're asking for assistance just on a day-to-day basis to make sure that they can manage the additional paperwork that comes along with that food safety certification.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Is there anything else that you would like to add while we're talking about Capital City, or maybe just comparing to other wholesale distributors if you can? Do you think that that's something that holds true for the majority of wholesale distributors?
I think every distributor is different, and their personal business expectations and policies, they vary. Again, it's all really based on their customer base. But Capital City, I mean, we always try best to be considered the premier distributor of fresh produce, and that comes with a greater expectation. What I would like to say, though, is that there are consumers out there that really support local. They're looking for local. There is a market for it. There's a pricing structure that supports it. There is a customer there. The question now becomes, can we find farmers? Can we partner with them? Can we support them to get them to expand and grow to scale to where they can actually service the consumer base that is consistently looking for them? So the customer is there. We do events like this so we can go out and try to touch the farmer and get to know them and meet them and try to help them understand that there are resources out there that are available, and there's a customer that really desires to support them and to purchase their products.
That's great. And with that being said, is there a link or an email or something that you would like to give to the public to get in touch with Capital City if somebody's interested in becoming a vendor for you?
Absolutely. Like I said, I have the lead oversight for our local farm initiative plan. I would love to discuss if there are any additional questions from the farmers. I can be reached at tbates, that's TBATES -Wells, WELLS, at ccpfresh.com. www.capitalcityproduce.com. And again, or you can, our information is also on our website at www.capitalcityproduce.com.
Great, and I'll make sure that all that information is included with this video so people can click on it in case they can't type it in.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you so much, Terreca. I really appreciate all of that.
My pleasure.
With that, we will move on to our next speaker. Give me just one moment. Here we go. Allison, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am Allison Tohmé, and I'm the Director of Regional Farmers Market Development with CLEDA. CLEDA is the Central Louisiana Economic Development Alliance. We are based in Alexandria, and we cover 10 parishes across the state, right here, in the middle of the state, the Central Louisiana region. All of our parishes that we serve are rural parishes, so that, of course, influences the way that we work. And CLEDA's role in the local food system is primarily as a connector. We try to connect our businesses with resources to help them grow. So we like to look at our farmers and ranchers and other producers as rural entrepreneurs. So we want to help them increase their businesses. And then we also try to connect our residents with fresh, healthy local food so that they have really great quality of life in the places where they live. So my role on our team is to work specifically with our farmers markets. We, as an organization, directly manage the Alexandria Farmers Market, and then we indirectly help other markets in other parts of the region.
Great. Okay. I was wondering how many markets fell under that group. So what certifications do you require of the growers that you work with at these markets?
We don't require any certifications formally. And I should specify that, as I answer these questions, I'm primarily speaking from the perspective of the market that we do manage directly. Mm-hmm. The other markets in the region will be practically identical in terms of the answers that I give, but I do just want to kind of clarify that I don't want to speak for the other markets, although they will have similar answers. So for our market, we do not require any certifications. We do prefer that our farmers can accept FMNP coupons, the Farmers Market Nutrition Program. And we have that preference for a couple of reasons. One, because it's really simple for them to do, to get that certification and to implement it. And so it's sort of a first step along the way for perhaps a new farmer who's trying to expand their business and look into some of these certifications. It's not a hard one to do. And then it also opens up their customer base quite a bit. We have a few farmers at our markets who get a very significant portion of their sales from that program alone. So when a farmer doesn't participate in it, they're missing out on a big segment of a customer base. So we love for them to be able to sell as much product as they can, of course. And so by being able to accept Farmers Market Nutrition Program coupons, that's an opportunity for those sales. And then, of course, on the customer side, with that program specifically, we love to have our FMNP customers come to a market and have lots to choose from, not just one farmer that might be able to take that form of currency, if you will. And then another certification that does come up quite a bit is FSMA. By and large, most of our growers are small scale. And so they're not selling $25,000 or more a year. But we still try to open up that conversation, about food safety and about FSMA specifically, to make sure that all of our growers are aware of, what's going on in the food safety world and what requirements they might have to adhere to. And we just try to connect them with resources to get the information, to get the training, and just help them understand what applies to them and what doesn't.
Great. So none are required, no certifications are required other than an awareness of food safety regulations and making sure that they are meeting the basics for food safety. And I assume that would be attending the Produce Safety Alliance trainings at some point or working towards it. Okay.
Right.
And FMMP is also not required, but it's very helpful to be involved with the market. It opens up more channels for you, and it also helps your market by making it more accessible to people.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I kind of two questions at once here. Do you see an effect from certain branding with your consumers and buyers? And I'm thinking about, marketing that FNMP, but also do you have any like organic growers or any other like, Louisiana grown certified growers that are marketing that at your market?
Yeah, we do have a couple of different sort of specialty branding opportunities. On a vendor level, we do have one organic farm that vends at our market. So of course, they do advertise that. And we have some grass-fed ranch products. So those are absolutely important factors in branding, definitely at the vendor level, but also at the market level. We certainly like to promote those things. Our primary focus when we talk about branding as a market is making sure that we're upholding the expectation that when a customer walks into a farmer's market, what they're seeing there was grown by the person who's selling it. So while that's not necessarily related to these certifications, it's sort of, in the same vein because, we're talking about transparency and we're talking about a farmer or a vendor being able to clearly talk about their practices and where they grew their products and how they grew their products. So that, it's important. Like I said, although it's not formally tied to any certification, but we do, just really try to encourage our vendors to tell their story to their customers, whether it involves a certification or not. Tell that story, build that relationship with your customer so that they can learn to trust and be comfortable with what they're buying. Customers definitely ask a lot of questions about where things came from and how it was produced. And rightfully so, we want them to ask those questions and to be informed customers. So again, whether a certification is formally part of that conversation or not, our primary focus is really having our vendors being transparent and proactive about telling that story. But it's probably obvious, but I think sometimes having that certification can make that communication a little more clear. And a little more objective. So, it can definitely play a role.
Yeah. So either you have a good enough connection with your farmer that you know where the food is coming from and how it was grown, or you have the certification just kind of read it for you. You understand that they got that certification for a certain reason. So you can still have that relationship with him, but you don't have to work through it so much to understand really what's going on there with the produce or with the meat. And I have one more question, just similar to what Terreca was saying about the demand for certain branding or more than just local. Is that something that you see at the market level as well? Do you have that community feedback with, hey, we want more grass-fed, we want more certified grass-fed meat, or we want more organic or something like that? Or is it more just the farmers that you have is what people are looking for?
Yeah, I'd say my answer is probably pretty similar to Terreca's. Our customers want locally produced food. And of course, the word local is hard to define. So, we'll leave that as its own conversation. But customers definitely demand that. And, again, I'll echo what Terreca was saying, that there is definitely a customer for that. And we need more of what we already have at our markets. I wouldn't say there is a lot of demand for any specific type of certification, but more just for a very transparent, locally produced product.
Great. Okay, and I can't remember if that's my last question or not. There we go. So how important altogether are these certifications for working with a grower?
Yeah, so when we as an organization or as a market are working with growers, a farmer having a certification is certainly not a criteria for us to work with them. They sort of provide a framework to help us navigate working with a vendor, just to help identify what someone's needs might be, and help them perhaps find a niche market. So they sort of provide a framework, or they can provide a framework, but they're not, they're not what defines our work or anything like that.
Hi. Dr. Hodson, do you have any questions for Allison and the Central Area Farmers Markets?
Oh, it seems like you're muted. I can't hear you.
Let me try again. It took a couple of tries. When your customers come to one of your markets, how do they know that there's going to be a variety? Do you work with farmers so that not every farmer is there selling tomatoes in May? I mean, do you work with farmers providing them information on what is in season or what will be in season, things that are popular with the customers? I mean, what type of guidance do you give a farmer regarding the selection of products that they sell?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because the selection at a farmer's market is something that comes up a lot, from both the customer side and the vendor side. And I'll say that, speaking from our small rural markets, we have never, ever, ever encountered a situation where there's too much of a certain product. So even if every single one of my farmers shows up with tomatoes on the same day, that's still not a problem, because customers want tomatoes. And then they're all going to be different, right? They're all going to be a different variety, have a little bit of a different story, and, vendors will attract their own customers. So that isn't necessarily an issue. We certainly like for our vendors to observe the market as a whole and learn, how they could diversify or distinguish themselves from other vendors. And so, yeah, we certainly try to help them along with that, and just point out that they're operating as part of a larger market, and that they can play a role in helping the market grow by diversifying. And we, on my team at CLEDA, I'm one of a team, and we have a wonderful set of skills on our team. We have people who work with community organizing and food policy, and we have people who work with farmers one-on-one on some of the more technical things. So we certainly use our work in farmers markets to help our vendors and our small farm businesses through a pipeline of resources. So, if we encounter a farmer who's perhaps only growing and selling during a couple of months of the year, we try to connect them with resources, for season extension, perhaps, or crop planning, to help them grow for a longer period of time. Or, that's just one example. But my point is that we try to connect our vendors with whatever resources they might need to grow and to diversify and find whatever their pathway is.
I have one more question about value added. Let's say your farmers have a great year with tomatoes. Do you find some of them tend to want to go into some kind of value added, turning those surplus tomatoes, for example, into salsa or tomato sauce? I mean, do you see some of that happening at your market?
Certainly, we certainly do, and we think that's a great thing. One thing that we really love to see is when because we do have some vendors who are only value-added vendors, meaning they primarily sell, jams or jellies or baked goods or pickles. But we love to see when those types of vendors are buying tomatoes from one of the farmers at the market and making a salsa out of it. Or, we have one of our value-added vendors that always buys okra from a vendor. And so every year he has pickled okra from, his neighbor farmer. So that's definitely an opportunity to market very clearly where it came from, and that it's local. And using, the products in a variety of ways.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks. So if somebody wanted to start selling at your markets or was interested in learning more, where would they go to get more information, or who would they talk to about that?
Yeah, we have a website that's freshcentral.org, and that would be a good place to find out about our work and our markets, and how to connect with us. Anyone is welcome to contact me directly, and if I can't help them, I'll certainly point them in the right direction. My email address is atohme@cenla.org.
Great. And so your growers don't need to be in the central region to work with you?
No, not necessarily. I mean, a grower doesn't need to be one of our parishes to sell at one of our markets. But if we're talking about technical assistance one-on-one with a farmer, then we are unfortunately limited to working within our region. But I'd still say, reach out, and if we're not able to help you, we do, know a lot of people around the state, and we'll make sure that we make those connections.
Great. Thank you so much, Allison. Really appreciate all of the answers about CLEDA and how you guys work in the central region with our farmers. With that, we will move on to Angelina Harrison. Angelina, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
I am turning all the things on. Hi, my name is Angelina Harrison. I'm the Director of Markets for the Crescent City Farmers Markets, run by the nonprofit Market Umbrella here in New Orleans. Typically that means that's referring to the 6 weekly markets that we host, although we're not doing that right now, and we've pivoted towards some home delivery and a no-contact drive-through market, as we kind of look to the future to see. But I guess I was going to say, in normal times when we talk about vendor onboarding, like a lot of this stuff comes up then. We've been on kind of a hiatus from onboarding as we kind of reconfigure all of our operations, but I can see on the horizon that we'll soon be there again. So
yeah. Okay, well, thank you. So what kind of certifications do you require of your growers typically when you're doing your onboarding?
Yeah, our primary rule is that every producer, be them a grower or a fisherman or a rancher or value-added producer, all need to follow all applicable food laws. So in some of those cases, that means certification, but in many, it doesn't. So for our growers, new this year, and I guess you had a different session talking about FSMA, but that would be like the primary one that I could imagine that a grower would need to have. Although at our scale, typically what we see are exempt or qualified exempt scale of producers. So if they fall under a category that would be FSMA requirement, food safety required of their operation, we would require them to have that. And obviously that's not a certification, but there would need to be some demonstration that they meet those requirements. The primary, so that would be like the only required one. Everything else is pretty optional, but we strongly recommend, to the point where, like with FMNP, the Farmers Market Nutrition Program that Allison was talking about, we build onboarding or getting certified into our onboarding process. So when we're sending our vendor vendor agreement form with our rules and regulations that they turn back into us when they're becoming a vendor, we also send them the current year's FMNP application to submit to the Department of Ag and Forestry if they haven't already done it. One of the reasons that we really like that one is, for all the reasons that Allison said, really just opening up the producer to all of the currencies that come into the market. But another thing that we see is that that program draws a lot of people who don't necessarily regularly shop at the farmers market. So when we're greeting customers who have those coupons and they're not necessarily familiar with the way things go, it's much more welcoming and easier education for us to just be able to look at all of our vendors and say, anyone with fresh food, or if you're a senior with honey, you can use these coupons at. Part of that certification is that the vendor displays the certification for it, and we have some backups, but they're not always out, or they're not always like super visible. So our goal is to just have everyone in the market be able to take it so the customers can feel free to shop without having to navigate too many barriers to a new kind of shopping experience. One other certification that we've really been focused on for several reasons is certified naturally grown, which so we have like a customer base who's looking for organic, or they're looking for sustainable practices. Certified naturally grown is a certification that has been around as long as certified organic, but the barriers to getting certified organic that smaller farmers face, they don't really face that with CNG. It's much cheaper, it's peer-led, so another producer who's already CNG can certify you after a visit. There are still strict requirements, and in many cases, the sustainability aspects and the limited use of synthetic pesticides and fertilizers, it's more in line with what people might think about as sustainable farming than even certified organic. So a big part of these certifications is education of the customer base. So we have the customers who already know and want it, and we're funneling them towards the growers who have it. But then the other part is building the market for these certifications, especially organic is like the gold standard of sustainable practices, and we do have a certified organic grower, but the more vendors that we have with the CNG certification, and our market itself is CNG certified, the more attention we can bring to that and to explaining to customers what exactly that certification represents, so that, I don't know, it's sort of like a farmer's market. You build the market and the customers come, you build awareness of sustainable growing practices and build the customer base for it. So we have now a few different growers who are CNG certified, many more customers who recognize it, and just kind of like a whole movement started. You can check the CNG website, and every now and then you see new CNG farm pop up in our little area.
Great. So why is it important that your market is certified CNG? What is that? Is that an opportunity to talk about the sustainability of your market and that you're encouraging more sustainable growing from your farmers?
It is. It basically just recognizes our position that is a preferred set of growing criteria of our producers. We're put on lists for it. We get special promotional materials for them. It's a tool for us to help promote our growers who have received that certification.
Mm-hmm. It comes out of you all wanting to be more sustainable in terms of how you're grown and how the food is grown at your market.
Yeah.
Great. So it sounded kind of like farmers market nutrition program is required for your growers.
It's not exactly required, but it's so easy to get that there's like no reason to not have it. I mean, seriously, we give them, it's like a one-page application. They send it off to LDAF. Rebecca usually visits them within a number of days. Like, we've seen them certified the same day that they turn it in. I mean, in the course of the onboarding process, for our markets, that can be one of the quickest turnarounds. And why would you not want to take the opportunity to make those additional sales?
Yeah, and we will be covering FMMP and CNG in other videos as well. So we'll get full details on, how people get into that and how it works.
Yep.
Let's say one of your growers was onboarding and didn't want to sign the FMMP. Would they still be welcome to participate at your market?
They would. And I mean, we would pretty much, frankly, onboard any grower. Finding farmers is, challenge for the farmers market. And we'll onboard them and help them. I mean, people have said this before, but our objective is to build, a robust market, but also to help small producers succeed. And so this is a really simple way that you can open your business to increased revenue.
Yeah, so kind of similar to Allison, there's not these barriers of entering the farmers market through certifications, but there are opportunities to earn certifications to help increase your marketability as a grower, but also your marketability as a farmer's market, to attract more people to come there. So it's kind of like it helps both ways.
Yeah, right. The farmer's market is only as great as the sum of its parts. So.
All right, so the next question I have for you is like, do you see an effect from certain branding with your consumers and buyers? That's talking about that demand that we were mentioning earlier.
Oh yeah, I mean, people are always so excited to see and become aware of our certified organic grower. When we explain the difference between organic and CNG and just talk about the scale of production that normally organic applies to versus the scale of production represented at the farmer's market, and how CNG is just a much better fit. Talking to customers about that, there's really like a dawning awareness, and you'll see customers, they shop then only at those specific growers. One other thing that I did want to mention, we don't require GAP certification, but we do work on some different programming, trying to connect local food into various supply chains. And some of those buyers that we work with do want it. So GAP is something that we talk to our producers about if they want to engage with us on some of our other programming options that are sort of extra market, you might call it, but still, in bringing local food into the city.
Great. Okay. So how important altogether are these certifications when you're working with selecting product or working with a grower?
I guess I have sort of two answers to that. They're not required, so they're not critical, but for us, they're a big indicator of the willingness of a grower to work with us. And I mean, yes, it's just, we onboard a vendor, they become a vendor at our market, it's a market opportunity for them, but there's really like a lot of partnership that goes on with that, and the different kind of programs that we try to build, the different kind of revenue streams outside of the market that we're trying to build for our growers, and opportunities for them, partnerships with different buyers, all of that requires a back and forth. And to some extent, seeing people interested in getting these certifications like FMNP or CNG or GAP is demonstrative of where somebody sees their farm business going, and kind of a clue to us about what programming they might be interested or not interested in working with us on.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Dr. Hodson, do you have any questions for Angelina?
One quick one, and I think hopefully I've got it unmuted. I wanted to ask, I know that, of course, the farmers market in New Orleans has been around for many, many, many years, and you've seen trends come and go. You feel like the trend right now in certified organic is definitely something that this is the time for it?
I have such a hard time answering that question for right now, because right now we're just seeing unprecedented demand for everything.
Right.
At the very beginning, we were seeing more demand for the naturally grown. Actually, all of our vendors who are CNG certified kind of branched off into different like naturally grown only CSA boxes. So that was super high demand in the beginning, and who knows really how it's gonna play out. Sorry, I'm just trying to like apply your question to more normal times.
Well, and I know these are very difficult times, and it's unprecedented with what we're all experiencing. So I know you can't really gauge right now with what has gone on in the past, and let's hope that we'll be able to pick up some of this in the future. But what about providing consumers with information about all these certifications? And it sounds like you really do a good job of providing information to your farmers so they can explain it. But what do consumers ask you as market directors about some of this, or how do they get information about what's the difference between FSMA and GAP and that type of thing?
Nobody ever really asks us about food safety on the customer side. When we're talking to customers, usually they're more concerned with growing practices, synthetic fertilizers and pesticides, sustainability. But I don't know if I've even one time been asked from a customer about food safety. Obviously, it's a big concern on the part of the market, and we actually do. So we don't require our vendors to have GAP certification, but we do require them to have product and liability insurance. So there is, an expectation of food safety there. Mostly people are curious about growing methods, we do have some printed literature on CNG, but I guess for the most part, that's just person-to-person conversational education about our different growers' practices.
Well, they probably feel like they're coming to the market and they're going to be getting a good, safe product. So that's automatically assumed, and they probably don't worry about asking because they know that good agricultural practices have been followed by that farmer. They wouldn't be at your market if they didn't.
Yeah. And it's a funny point because one of our producers who didn't get CNG certified, he's like, everybody here thinks that it's all organic anyhow. You know, unlike Terreca, we have the advantage, like all of our growers are local. And so, you know, without having to get any of that certification to demonstrate that, it's just sort of like implied in the farmer's market.
So you think it'd be pretty redundant to have a Louisiana grown or certified Louisiana branding in the market?
Kind of for us, but like Pam said, I mean, we're in our 25th year of operation now. And I think that for us, you know, people know that we are a producer only market and have been for a very long time. I know that not all markets around us are like that, but I think that I do feel like for us that would be redundant, and it's not something that we I don't know, really look for or prioritize.
Yeah. Is that something that's displayed at your market as people walk up, especially if you have visitors going to the market for the first time? Is there any type of signage that says, you know, like producer only market?
I'm trying to think back to hosting live markets. I don't know. I don't think that it says that anywhere. I mean, we talk about it all the time, and it's in like all of our literature, you know, electronic or print, but I don't know that we have any like market signage, but that's a great idea.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see everybody's face at once here, and you can all turn your cameras back on. So thank you guys so much for participating and answering these questions about certifications and to help people get a better idea as to how they can be prepared to enter these different markets. It seems like the most important thing would be talking to your growers or talking to the people that you want to sell to figure out what's needed to enter that market. So, you know, if you wanted to start selling wholesale to Capital City, to speak to Terreca first and figure out what you need to go after it and then achieve that certification as needed. If you want to start selling at a farmer's market in Alexandria, to talk to Allison and figure out what you can do to get ready to sell at that market. And same with the Crescent City farmers markets in New Orleans with Angelina. Oh, Angelina, I'm sorry I didn't give you a chance to give your information if somebody wanted to start selling to you.
Oh yeah. So our rules and regulations and vendor application are all accessible at our website, crescentcityfarmersmarket.org or marketumbrella.org for short. There's a vendor tab, and all of that information is available there, including a list of suggested items to produce was one of the things that came up earlier.
Great. So unfortunately, we weren't able to get a grocery store on the line for this training. We called several, and a lot of them were really interested in helping out, but at the last minute weren't able to do so, and that's because they are just completely swamped right now. Dr. Hodson, do you care to comment just a little bit on what's happening with grocery stores right now during the quarantine?
Well, besides having lots of customers that are very interested in buying from our local grocery stores, there's been a real disruption in the supply chain. Farmers are having a difficult time getting their products picked up either by a food distribution company or a wholesaler, and then in turn getting those products to the stores. So it's really made for a very stressful situation, and we certainly understand that, and we'll get the grocery store perspective on the certifications from some of the grocery stores by way of a survey. So their information will be included in a document that will be made available after the workshop. So their thoughts will be included.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, so we won't be leaving them out. We just unfortunately couldn't get them on the video now, but we're going to get this feedback from them. Next up, to represent the schools, we have Crystal Besse. Crystal, if you would introduce yourself, your role, and the role of your organization in the local food system.
Okay, hi, I'm Crystal Besse. I work for LSU Ag Center, and I am the Farm to School program specialist. What I mainly do is I connect schools with local farmers. So we take the relationships that we have with producers in the state, and we kind of try to match those up with schools that are looking to buy more local food. And we also create resources that we always post online that you can kind of go back and refer to those. So we're constantly creating new resources on how to buy local, how to find schools that are looking for local. So you can find that on our website. And then, like I said, I try to create relationships between farmers and school systems. So we're doing that all the time, year round.
Thanks. And we'll go a little bit further into those resources at the end of this part of the presentation. So the reason that we're talking with Crystal today instead of just one child nutrition director, one school district, is that Crystal works with several different directors. So she can actually give a better perspective from what these different buyers are looking for. So first off, Crystal, what kind of certifications do schools require of their growers?
So the main concern certifications that schools are looking for is they want to know if you have some sort of food safety plan in place. So that could be GAP certification. It could be any kind of third-party food safety certification, or if you just have a food safety plan that is written out. So they're looking for something that is in writing. Every school district is different. So you may go to one parish and talk to their child nutrition director, and they want only GAP certification, and you may go to the neighboring parish, and they will buy from you as long as you have a food safety plan. So the most important thing to remember here is that you approach every district and just speak to them. That's why a one-on-one relationship is important, to get to know what that district requires of you. I would say all of them require liability insurance, and you're looking at about a $1 million liability insurance, depending. Like I said, every school district is different, so you'd have to ask them what exactly they're looking for. But a general rule of thumb is going to be $1 million. They also will sometimes require references. Like if you already sell to some grocery stores, then that would be a good reference to have for a school system, because they're looking for consistency on a larger scale. So rather than providing for one restaurant, you need to be able to prove that you can provide for a larger scale of audience for your consumers, because they're feeding hundreds of kids every day. So they want to make sure that you have enough product for them to be able to serve that.
Great. And that $1 million liability insurance, that's not $1 million that a farmer has to pay, right?
No, it's not. So you can be insured for $1 million, but your premium is not going to cost that much.
Right.
So it'll be a much smaller portion of that. But it will insure you for up to $1 million if something happens with your product.
Great. And do we have more information about that on our website somewhere?
There's a little bit of that on the website under producer resources.
Okay.
And then you can also talk to your insurer about that. Likely, if you've been selling already to some wholesale or restaurants and things like that, you may already have liability insurance, but that's a conversation to really, it's a personal conversation to have with your insurer. So to find out how much the premium would be.
Okay. So other than GAP certification, which is not a requirement, but a great way to show that you are certified food safety here. So schools prefer local?
Schools definitely prefer local. They would love to have local. Every school district will define what local is on their own. Some people will say it's within a 250-mile radius. Some people are looking for only things that are within Louisiana. So just you have to talk to every district to see, again, what they're requiring. They prefer GAP because that's what they're comfortable with, and that's what they know. That's a trustworthy third-party certification for food safety. So they're comfortable if you have GAP, but if you can prove that you have food safety practices and produce safety practices on your farm, and you have those written down that you can share with them, then that'll really take you further. Some school districts have a hard and fast rule, though. They only want GAP certification. So that is a preference that is up to the school district to decide. And if you run into something like that, you can always, like I said, go to a neighboring parish and see what they require. Every district is different.
Got it. So sorry about that. Do schools see an effect from certain branding with consumers and buyers? And this is usually this is our market part, so we have to define here who the consumers and buyers are at the school.
So for the school system, their consumers or buyers are going to be the students. It's also going to be the teachers and staff, and it's also going to be the parents. And they do see an effect from branding. A lot of school districts will market their local products. They will put signs on the sneeze guards in the lunch line. They'll put signs on the walls. They also use our Harvest of the Month branding. So when you sign up for Harvest of the Month, we always, try to encourage those schools that are signed up for Harvest of the Month to buy local and to utilize those Harvest of the Month posters and all of our resources for that in their schools to advertise that they have a local product. And then some schools will also even go so far as to advertise your particular farm. So right there in the school, so that the students know where their food actually came from, which farm it came from, which is really nice.
Great. And so what all is advertised at the school is mostly the local food when they have it, but it seems like organic and grass-fed aren't as likely within a school just because of price.
That's right. The school's price rules and safety also rules. So those two are, probably number one together. And so they can't really afford organic or grass-fed, those type of certifications, just because they can't pay for that. And they can't pay for those premium prices. And if they can, they may do it once a year, they may do it twice a year, but it's not going to be something that they do on a consistent basis. But local is a great thing to advertise, and there are lots of ways that you can go outside the box to sell your product to them. So if you have an organic product, but you have some number twos that are organic that you can sell at a lower price or maybe an equal price to what they're paying, they may be interested in buying your number twos if they're going to cut it up. That's where the relationship comes from. So it's a dance between the farmer and the district, the school district. And so you just have to be able to go back and forth and find out what they're able to do and what you're able to do, and find a common ground there.
So they don't have to advertise their food safety. They don't have to advertise if their farmer is GAP certified or not, because it's just understood there in the lunchroom.
That's right. So the students are coming in. They trust that their school is selling them a safe product. And so your product is not going to get past the district child nutrition director until that person until the district level has vetted your product that it is a safe product. So, and then the students coming in to eat, they're trusting their school that this is a good product. So it's not so much the safety that is going to be advertised, it's going to be the local part, but it's all understood that this is a safe product for them.
Thanks. Let's see, last question here. How important are certifications in the selection of product or working with a grower for schools?
So the main certifications that are and the most important are going to be back to safety. So they want the safest food at the best price that they can get. So however that works within their district, then they want to make that work. They love to get local, but it's not always feasible for them if it's not affordable. So they also need consistency. So that's where the references come from. You know, if you are selling on a large scale and you can prove to them that your product is going to be a reliable product unless something happens with your crop, then you also need to talk a little bit about, okay, if something does happen with your crop, you know, what are you going to be able to provide them in exchange? So it is very much a one-on-one relationship that schools are to buy from a local farmer, but they also buy local through their wholesale distributors. So if you sell to a wholesale distributor already and your product is there, then they may already be getting your product, just, you know, through their wholesale.
Yeah, thanks. So, I mean, as you've been saying, it's really just the relationship. It's getting to know who is growing the food and what kind of price are we working with, and how is the product going to be used and everything, and what avenue are you going to go through. So it really is a bunch of different complicated steps here to get it to work out, but it's something that the schools want and something that our farmers want too.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, and if you talk to a district that is not open to buying your product at this time, maybe they're just not comfortable with it, then there are lots of other districts in this state that you can approach, and everybody is different out there, so they all have their own governance to be able to say, this is what I think local is, and this is the requirements or the certifications that I require. So just don't give up and go to your next district and see what they have to say.
Great, thanks. Dr. Hodson, do you have any questions for Crystal? You might be muted, Dr. Hodson.
We have farmers who are listening, participating in this series, and they may really want to get busy and maybe try to work with a school. Do you have any resources for a farmer on how to work with a school? I mean, is there something on the Farm to School webpage that a farmer can go to and maybe get an idea of where to start?
Yes. So if you go to our website, so Sydney's showing our Farm to School website now. If you go to producer resources at the top there, and then the farm to institutions. So there's a lot of information here that you can start with. So you can read about, you know, basically kind of a little bit more about what we just talked about. And then if you want to get a little deeper, you can use our website to look at more of what the Harvest of the Month program is, exactly what the cafeterias need to do. So in this in the cafeteria tab, it tells you exactly what the cafeterias need to do for how to find local food, how to purchase it, and so they have a lot of requirements there. So you can take a look at what the requirements are for schools and kind of get your head in the game. And if you have any questions, you can always call. Our program staff are here to assist you. We're here to create that relationship. So we're always ready to help you get into the school system.
So if a farmer has any questions, the first place they should start would be the Farm to School webpage, right?
That's right. Yeah. Start on the Farm to School website. If you still have questions after that, go ahead and give us a call.
Okay. Thank you, Crystal.
Thank you.
And we're all members of the Farm to School program, so reach out to any of us. As soon as our offices open back up, we'll be available by phone. But until then, email might be the best option. Yeah. But thank you, Crystal, so much for joining us. And that is the end of our marketing perspective and the end of our entire series. So I really appreciate everybody for watching this episode, and please give us feedback. Contact us anytime. Feel free to email me directly at smelhado at agcenter.lsu.edu. Thanks, and that'll be the end of our show.